It's a Tuesday morning in downtown Seattle. The date is March 15th, and Marcus Chen is standing in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for what feels like the 100th time. His hands are shaking slightly, and if you looked closely, you'd see the beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool spring morning. Marcus had spent the last 3 years working at a mid-sized tech company, grinding away at projects that never quite challenged him the way he wanted. He was talented, everyone knew it, but he was stuck in that frustrating middle zone where you're too experienced for entry-level work but haven't quite broken through to the senior roles where the real interesting problems live. But today was different. Today, Marcus had an interview at TechVision Industries, one of the most innovative companies in the Pacific Northwest. They were doing cutting-edge work in artificial intelligence and sustainable technology. Getting a job there wasn't just a career move, it was the career move. The kind of opportunity that comes around maybe once in a lifetime. Marcus had been preparing for this interview for 2 weeks straight. He'd studied the company's recent projects, memorized the names and backgrounds of the executives, practiced coding challenges until he could solve them in his sleep, and rehearsed his answers to potential questions so many times that his roommate had started repeating them back to him as a joke. The interview was scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Marcus had planned everything down to the minute. He'd catch the 8:15 bus, which would get him downtown by 8:50, giving him plenty of time to grab a coffee and compose himself before walking into the TechVision building at 9:15. Perfect timing. Professional. Prepared. He looked at himself one more time in the mirror. Navy blue suit, perfectly pressed. White shirt, no wrinkles. Red tie, the color of confidence, or so the article he'd read online had promised. His resume was printed on premium paper, tucked safely in a leather portfolio his parents had given him for graduation. He looked the part. He felt ready. Marcus grabbed his keys and phone, took one deep breath, and headed out the door of his small apartment. The morning air was crisp and clean, the kind of Seattle morning where the rain had passed through overnight and left everything sparkling and fresh. A good omen, he thought. He walked the 3 blocks to the bus stop with purpose, his dress shoes clicking confidently on the sidewalk. Other people were starting their morning commutes, clutching travel mugs and scrolling through their phones. Marcus felt different from them today. He felt like he was on the verge of something big. The bus arrived right on schedule at 8:15. Marcus climbed aboard, found a seat near the middle, and pulled out his phone to review his notes one more time. Questions to ask the interviewer. Check. Examples of past projects. Check. Salary negotiation talking points. Check. He had this. He was ready. The bus rumbled through the city streets, making its usual stops. Marcus watched the city pass by through the window, trying to stay calm. He'd been on hundreds of bus rides in the city, but somehow this one felt different. Every stop, every turn, every traffic light was bringing him closer to his future. At 8:35, the bus turned onto 4th Avenue, heading into the heart of downtown. Marcus could see the gleaming glass towers of the financial district ahead. TechVision's building was one of those towers, a 30-story monument to innovation with the company's logo visible from blocks away. Just seeing it made Marcus's heart beat faster. The bus made its stop at the corner of 4th and Pike. Marcus stood up, adjusted his tie one more time, and stepped off onto the sidewalk. The TechVision building was just 4 blocks away now. He had 15 minutes before he needed to be there. Everything was going according to plan. But then Marcus heard something that would change everything. It was a voice. A woman's voice. And she was screaming. Marcus froze on the sidewalk, his head whipping around to locate the source. Other pedestrians were looking around too, confused, concerned. The scream came again, more desperate this time, from somewhere down the side street to his right. For just a moment, Marcus stood there paralyzed by indecision. He looked at his phone. 8:37. He looked down the side street where the screaming was coming from. He looked ahead at the TechVision building, so close he could practically reach out and touch it. Every rational part of his brain was screaming at him to keep walking. This was his moment. This was everything he'd worked for. Surely someone else would help whoever was in trouble. This was a busy city. There were police around. He couldn't risk being late. Not today. Not for this. But Marcus's feet weren't listening to his rational brain. They were already moving, turning toward the side street, breaking into a run as another scream pierced the morning air. He rounded the corner and immediately saw the situation. Halfway down the block, In the narrow space between two buildings that served as an access alley for deliveries, a woman was on the ground. She was probably in her late 50s, wearing a gray business suit that was now smudged with dirt. Her purse was on the ground beside her, its contents scattered across the pavement. And standing over her, yanking at her briefcase, was a young man in a hooded sweatshirt. "Let go. Help. Someone help me," the woman was shouting, her voice raw with fear and anger. Marcus didn't think. He just ran. "Hey. Hey!" He shouted as loud as he could, his voice echoing off the brick walls. "Get away from her." The would-be thief's head snapped up, and for a moment, Marcus saw the panic in his eyes. The guy couldn't have been more than 19 or 20, thin and jittery in a way that suggested he was desperate, maybe on drugs. He was still gripping the woman's briefcase with one hand. Marcus was closing the distance fast, his dress shoes slapping against the wet pavement. The thief made a split-second decision. He gave one final yank on the briefcase, which tore free from the woman's grip, and then he took off running in the opposite direction, disappearing around the far corner of the alley with the briefcase clutched under his arm. Marcus had a choice: chase the thief or help the woman. He chose the woman. He slid to a stop beside her, slightly out of breath, his perfectly styled hair now disheveled. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" The woman was breathing hard, her hand pressed against her chest. She looked shaken but determined, her jaw set in a way that suggested she was furious more than frightened. I'm okay. Thank you for stopping. Most people just..." She gestured vaguely at the main street where dozens of pedestrians had walked right past. "Can you stand?" Marcus asked, already reaching out to help her up. "Did he hurt you?" No, I don't think so. Just knocked me down when he grabbed my briefcase." She accepted Marcus's hand and let him help her to her feet. As she stood, she winced and immediately put less weight on her right foot. Twisted my ankle, I think." Marcus looked at her carefully. She was a professional woman, that much was obvious. Her gray suit was expensive, even covered in dirt from the alley. Her hair was styled in a sophisticated silver bob, and despite being clearly rattled, she carried herself with an air of authority. There was something about her that commanded respect, even in this vulnerable moment. "Okay, let's get you somewhere safe and call the police," Marcus said, his mind already running through the logistics. He pulled out his phone and checked the time as he dialed 911. 8:42. His stomach dropped. He had 48 minutes until his interview. He looked back at the woman, who was now trying to collect her scattered belongings from the ground while balancing on one foot. She picked up a lipstick, a set of keys, a phone with a cracked screen. Marcus made his decision. He hung up before the 911 call connected and knelt down to help gather her things. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Shouldn't you call the police?" "I will," Marcus said, scooping up a wallet and a small makeup bag. "But first let's get you somewhere you can sit down properly. Can you walk at all?" "I think so if I go slowly." She took a tentative step and grimaced. "It's not broken, just tender." "Here." Marcus stood and offered his arm. "Lean on me. There's a coffee shop on the main street, just around the corner. We can get you sitting down, get some ice for that ankle, and call both the police and whoever you need to contact about your briefcase." The woman studied him for a moment, and Marcus saw her really take in his appearance for the first time. The expensive suit, the careful grooming, the obvious tension in his shoulders as he kept glancing at his watch. "You're dressed for something important," she said. It wasn't a question. Marcus helped her start moving slowly toward the main street. "It's fine. Let's just get you taken care of." "You have somewhere to be," she pressed. "Don't you?" "Nothing more important than making sure you're okay," Marcus said, and he was surprised to find that he actually meant it. Yes, the interview was screaming in the back of his mind, and yes, every second that ticked by was making him more anxious, but looking at this woman who'd just been attacked, who was hurt and shaken and had lost her briefcase, he knew he couldn't just leave her. They made slow progress back to the main street. The woman leaned heavily on Marcus's arm, trying not to put weight on her injured ankle. Marcus matched her pace, fighting every instinct that told him to hurry. The coffee shop was one of those local Seattle places that pride themselves on being quirky and authentic. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and the kind of rich coffee aroma that made you feel warm just walking through the door. On any other morning, Marcus would have loved this place. This morning, it felt like a prison. He helped the woman to a comfortable armchair near the window and then went to the counter to order. "Can I get an ice pack?" he asked the barista, a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings. "And a large coffee, black and—" He turned back to the woman. "What would you like?" "Earl Grey tea, please." "With honey," the woman called back. Marcus paid for the drinks and waited while the barista assembled the ice pack. He checked his phone again. 8:51. 39 minutes until his interview. He could still make it, he told himself. He'd get the woman settled, wait for the police, give a quick statement, and then run. He'd be a few minutes late, but he could explain. They'd understand. Wouldn't they? He brought the drinks and ice pack back to the woman, who had arranged herself in the armchair and was examining her cracked phone screen with a frown. "Thank you," she said, accepting the tea and ice pack. She pressed the ice against her ankle and winced. "You're very kind. I'm Eleanor, by the way. Eleanor Hartley." Marcus Chen. He shook her offered hand. "I'm just glad you're okay. Let me call the police now." This time he did complete the 911 call, explaining what had happened and giving their location. The dispatcher said officers would be there within 15 minutes to take a statement. Marcus did the math. If the police arrived in 15 minutes, and if he could give his statement quickly, he might still make it to his interview by 9:30. It would be close, but possible. He sat down in the chair across from Eleanor, trying not to look as anxious as he felt. "You keep checking your watch," Eleanor observed, sipping her tea. She looked much more composed now, sitting with the ice on her ankle. The color had returned to her face. "What is it you're late for?" Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to seem like he was trying to rush her, but he also felt like he owed her the truth. "A job interview. It's at 9:30. Eleanor's eyes widened slightly. "Oh my goodness. You should go. I'm fine now. You've done more than enough." No, I need to give a statement to the police. And I want to make sure you're really okay." "I am. Truly. Just a twisted ankle." She leaned forward. "Where's your interview?" "TechVision Industries. It's just a few blocks from here." Something changed in Eleanor's expression, though Marcus couldn't quite identify what it was. Surprise? Recognition? It passed so quickly he wondered if he'd imagined it. "TechVision," she repeated. "That's a good company. What position?" "Senior software engineer. It's a big opportunity. I've been preparing for weeks." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, which he realized was now a mess. "Perfect. Though I'm guessing I won't be making the best first impression if I show up late and disheveled." Eleanor studied him quietly for a moment, her teacup raised halfway to her lips. There was an intensity in her gaze that made Marcus slightly uncomfortable, like she was evaluating something about him that went far beyond this moment. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus," she said finally. "Why TechVision? What draws you there?" Marcus blinked, surprised by the question. Here he was, helping this woman after she'd been attacked, and she wanted to chat about his career aspirations? But there was something about Eleanor that made you want to answer her questions. Maybe it was the way she asked, with genuine interest. Maybe it was the authority in her voice. Or maybe Marcus just needed something to distract him from the approaching interview. "I've been working at mid-range tech for 3 years," he began. "Good company, good people, but the work has gotten repetitive. I want to be challenged. I want to work on problems that matter, you know? TechVision is at the forefront of sustainable technology. They're using AI to optimize renewable energy systems, reduce waste in manufacturing, actually make a difference in climate change. That's the kind of work I got into engineering to do." Eleanor nodded, encouraging him to continue. "Plus, their team is incredible. Some of the smartest people in the industry. I'd learn so much there. Grow in ways I can't at my current job." He laughed self-deprecatingly. At least, that was the plan. Not sure they'll be impressed with a candidate who shows up late covered in alley dirt. He looked down at his suit and noticed for the first time that his knee was smudged with grime from kneeling to help Eleanor gather her things. There was also a scuff on his right shoe. He wanted to care, but somehow, sitting here with this woman who'd just been through a traumatic experience, It felt petty to worry about his appearance. "Why did you stop?" Eleanor asked suddenly. "What? Why did you stop to help me? You obviously have somewhere critically important to be. The interview that could change your career. Yet you heard someone in trouble and you ran toward it, not away." She tilted her head. "Most people wouldn't have done that. In my experience, most people would have convinced themselves that someone else would help, that their own priorities had to come first." Marcus thought about it. "I don't know, honestly. I didn't really think about it. I heard you and I couldn't just walk away. What kind of person would that make me?" "A person who gets to their job interview on time," Eleanor said, but there was warmth in her voice, not criticism. "A person who focuses on their own goals and lets other people handle other people's problems." "I guess I'm not that person then." Marcus checked his phone again. 9:02. 28 minutes. He felt his anxiety rising like a tide. Though maybe I should be. Maybe that person would have a better career. Or maybe, Eleanor said softly, that person would have a career but not a life worth living. Before Marcus could respond, 2 police officers entered the coffee shop, looking around. Marcus stood and waved them over. What followed was 20 minutes of statements and questions. The officers were thorough, which Marcus appreciated intellectually, but which made him want to scream practically. They took detailed descriptions of the attacker, asked about the briefcase, documented Eleanor's injury, took photos, asked Marcus to recount his actions step by step. Eleanor was remarkably calm and precise in her answers, which didn't surprise Marcus. There was something collected about her, even after being attacked. She described the contents of her briefcase, a laptop, some confidential work documents, a presentation she'd been preparing for that afternoon. "Was there anything irreplaceable in the briefcase?" one of the officers asked. "The presentation was backed up," Eleanor said. "The laptop is password protected and will be remotely wiped as soon as I report it stolen. The documents were confidential, but not catastrophic. Mostly it's just the inconvenience." She smiled wryly. "And the fact that it was my favorite briefcase." Marcus was barely listening. He was watching the minutes tick by on his phone. 9:15, 9:17, 9:20. At 9:23, the police finally said they had everything they needed. They gave Eleanor a case number and said they'd be in touch if they recovered any of her property or caught the thief. Marcus knew the chances were slim. Crimes like this in a busy city? The guy was probably long gone. As soon as the officers left, Marcus stood up, gathering his things. "I'm so sorry, but I really need to go. Will you be okay? Do you have someone who can come get you?" Eleanor waved her now-fixed phone. "I've already texted my assistant. She'll be here in 10 minutes to pick me up. You go. Run. You might still make it." Marcus was already backing toward the door. "I'm so glad you're okay. Good luck with everything." "Marcus," Eleanor called after him. He paused at the door. "Thank you. Really. What you did mattered." He nodded, smiled, and then burst out onto the street, already running. Marcus ran like he'd never run before. In dress shoes and a business suit, he sprinted the 4 blocks to the TechVision building. People stared as he flew past them. He dodged around slower pedestrians, jumped over a dog leash, nearly collided with a bicycle courier. His lungs were burning. His dress shoes were absolutely not designed for running, and he could feel a blister forming on his heel. His carefully styled hair was now completely disheveled. He was sweating through his shirt. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was getting there, getting to that interview. He burst through the doors of the TechVision building at exactly 9:34. 4 minutes late. The lobby of TechVision Industries was everything Marcus had imagined. Sleek, modern, with high ceilings and walls made of glass. There was a 3-story water feature along one wall, creating a peaceful sound that contrasted sharply with Marcus's racing heartbeat. The receptionist area was staffed by 2 professional-looking people in matching blue shirts with the TechVision logo. Marcus stumbled up to the desk, trying to catch his breath and probably looking absolutely deranged. "I'm here for an interview," he gasped out. "Marcus Chen. 9:30. I know I'm late, I'm so sorry, there was an emergency." The receptionist, a young man with trendy glasses, checked his computer. "Ah yes, Mr. Chen. Let me let them know you're here. He picked up the phone, spoke quietly into it, then turned back to Marcus with a sympathetic smile. They're ready for you. 17th floor, conference room B. The elevators are just over there. Thank you, Marcus managed. He caught a glimpse of himself in the reflective glass wall and wanted to cry. He was a disaster. His suit was wrinkled and smudged. His hair looked like he'd stuck his finger in an electrical socket. His face was red from running. This was not how he'd imagined making his entrance. The elevator ride to the 17th floor felt both infinitely long and much too short. Marcus tried to fix his hair, brushed at the smudges on his suit, wiped the sweat from his forehead. It was hopeless. He looked like he'd been in a fight. Or helping someone who'd been in a fight, which was actually true. The elevator doors opened with a cheerful ding. Marcus stepped out into a sleek hallway with more glass walls and modern art. A woman in professional attire was waiting by the elevators, clearly there to greet him. Mr. Chen? I'm Rebecca, from HR. Right this way, please. I'm so sorry I'm late, Marcus said immediately as they started walking. There was a situation on my way here, a woman was being attacked, and I had to help. It's quite all right, Rebecca said, though Marcus couldn't tell if she believed him or if she was just being polite. These things happen. They walked down the hallway to a glass-walled conference room. Through the windows, Marcus could see 3 people sitting at the table inside, waiting. His interview panel. This was it. Rebecca opened the door and gestured for him to enter. Good luck, she said, and then she was gone. Marcus took a deep breath, put on what he hoped was a confident smile despite his disheveled appearance, and walked into the room. Good morning, he said. I'm Marcus Chen. I apologize for being late. He stopped mid-sentence. Because sitting at the head of the conference table, looking directly at him with a small smile on her face, was Eleanor. Eleanor Hartley. The woman from the alley. The woman he'd just spent the last hour helping. She was sitting there in a fresh gray suit, not the one smudged with alley dirt, her silver hair perfectly styled, her ankle apparently fine or at least hidden under the table. And she was looking at him with an expression that was part amused, part impressed, and entirely unsurprising. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. He just stood there staring. Eleanor, because apparently she had some kind of magical ability to change clothes and travel faster than him, spoke first. Hello again, Marcus. Please have a seat. The other 2 people at the table were looking between Marcus and Eleanor with confusion. One was a man in his early 40s with stylish black-rimmed glasses and a friendly face. The other was a woman about Marcus's age with dark hair in a professional ponytail, holding a pen poised over a notebook. Marcus somehow managed to move his legs and sink into the empty chair across from the panel. His brain was working overtime trying to make sense of this. Eleanor was here. Eleanor was at his interview. Eleanor was sitting at the head of the table like she was in charge because, oh no. Oh no. Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. I didn't. I think we're all a bit confused, the man with glasses said pleasantly. Eleanor, you 2 know each other? We met this morning, Eleanor said, that small smile still playing at her lips. Marcus here pulled me out of what could have been a very bad situation. I was attacked near Pike Street. Marcus heard me calling for help and didn't hesitate to intervene. He made sure I was safe, helped me contact the police, and stayed with me until everything was resolved. Which, I might add, is why he's a few minutes late. The woman with the ponytail's eyes widened. Oh my God, are you okay? I'm fine, Sarah, thank you. Just a twisted ankle and a lost briefcase. Eleanor turned her attention back to Marcus, and the intensity of her gaze made him feel like he was under a spotlight. What I didn't tell you at the coffee shop, Marcus, is who I am. I'm Eleanor Hartley, Chief Operating Officer of TechVision Industries. And I'm leading this interview panel today. Marcus felt like reality had just shifted sideways. Eleanor Hartley was the Chief Operating Officer of TechVision Industries. He'd researched this company obsessively for 2 weeks, and somehow he'd never seen her photo. He'd read about the CEO, the CTO, the various department heads, but the COO had somehow escaped his attention. I had no idea, Marcus said, finding his voice finally. I'm so sorry, I should have recognized you, Why? Eleanor interrupted gently. Because you should have memorized the faces of every executive? Or because you think you should have treated me differently if you'd known who I was? I what? No, I just meant. You meant you would have been even more anxious about being late to meet me specifically. Eleanor's smile widened. Marcus, relax. Let me introduce you to the rest of the panel. This is David Wong, our senior engineering manager. He'd be your direct supervisor if you join us. David raised a hand in greeting. Nice to meet you, Marcus. Though I have to say, this is the most interesting start to an interview I've ever witnessed. And this is Sarah Kim, one of our lead AI researchers. She'll be asking you some of the technical questions. Sarah smiled warmly. Any friend of Eleanor's is welcome here. What you did this morning was really brave. I wouldn't say brave, Marcus said, finally starting to collect himself. Just what anyone should do. But that's the thing, Eleanor said, leaning forward slightly. Not everyone does do it. In fact, you'd be surprised how many people don't. Let me ask you something, Marcus, before we get into the formal interview questions. When you heard me calling for help, what went through your mind? Marcus thought back to that moment on the sidewalk. It felt like a lifetime ago now. Honestly, my first thought was about the interview. About how I couldn't be late. About how I'd worked so hard for this opportunity. He looked directly at Eleanor. I'm not going to lie and say I'm some kind of saint. For a second there, I almost kept walking. But you didn't, David said. What changed? I realized that if I walked away, if I got this job because I'd been willing to ignore someone in trouble, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. It wouldn't be worth it. Marcus shrugged. And honestly, it wasn't even really a conscious decision. My feet just started moving. Eleanor nodded slowly, and Marcus thought he saw approval in her eyes. Integrity, she said. When tested in the moment, you chose to do the right thing even though it cost you something. That tells me more about your character than any interview question could. Though we still have to ask the interview questions, Sarah added with a laugh. HR would have our heads otherwise. What followed was, oddly enough, one of the best interviews Marcus had ever given. Maybe it was because the most awkward part was already over. Maybe it was because knowing he'd helped the COO took some of the pressure off. Or maybe it was because sitting in that alley with Eleanor, talking about why he wanted to work at TechVision, had been a kind of practice run. David asked him about his technical background, his experience with various programming languages and frameworks. Marcus answered confidently, giving specific examples from his previous projects. He walked them through a particularly complex problem he'd solved involving optimizing database queries for a high-traffic application. Sarah presented him with a coding challenge, a classic algorithm problem with a twist. Marcus worked through it on the whiteboard, talking through his thought process, considering edge cases, optimizing his solution. He even spotted a potential issue with his first approach and corrected it, which earned an impressed nod from Sarah. They asked about his teamwork experience, his leadership skills, how he handled conflict. Marcus drew on real examples, being honest about both his successes and his failures. There was something about the way this interview had started that made him feel like he didn't need to pretend to be perfect. These people had already seen him at his most disheveled and flustered. What was the point in trying to be something he wasn't? Throughout it all, Eleanor watched and listened, occasionally asking a follow-up question, but mostly letting David and Sarah take the lead. When she did speak, her questions were always pointed and insightful, going deeper than the surface-level responses. Tell me about a time when you had to choose between what was easy and what was right, she asked at one point. Marcus told her about a previous project where he discovered a security vulnerability in the company's code. Fixing it would have delayed the product launch by 2 weeks and made him unpopular with a management team who wanted to hit their deadline. He'd pushed for the fix anyway, even though it had caused tension. The product launched late, but without the security flaw that could have compromised customer data. What was the fallout? Eleanor asked. Initially, I was persona non grata with the project managers. They felt I'd made them look bad. Marcus smiled ruefully. But 6 months later, when one of our competitors had a major data breach, suddenly I was the guy with good judgment. I learned that doing the right thing doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it's what lets you sleep at night. Eleanor's smile suggested she knew exactly what he meant. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. The interview delved into everything from Marcus's understanding of TechVision's current projects to his ideas for future development. He found himself genuinely engaged, excited about the possibilities, forgetting to be nervous. Finally, Eleanor glanced at her watch. "We're running over time, which is a good sign. But I know David has another meeting in 10 minutes. David laughed. "Eleanor, you know you're the one who sets the meeting schedule. You can push it back if you want." No, we've covered everything we need to cover." Eleanor stood up, and the others followed suit. Marcus did the same, his heart suddenly racing again. Was it over? How had he done? He couldn't tell from their expressions. Eleanor walked around the table and extended her hand to Marcus. "Thank you for coming in today, Marcus. And thank you again for what you did this morning." Marcus shook her hand, trying to read her expression. "Thank you for the opportunity. I know the circumstances were unusual, but I really appreciate you giving me a chance despite everything." "Despite what?" "Despite you showing us exactly the kind of person you are when no one's watching." Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "That wasn't a disadvantage, Marcus. That was the interview." David and Sarah shook his hand too, both friendly and warm. Sarah whispered, "You did great," as she let go, which made Marcus feel slightly better. Rebecca appeared to escort him back to the elevators. As he was leaving, he glanced back at the conference room. Eleanor was standing at the window, looking out at the city, a thoughtful expression on her face. The next week was torture. Pure, unadulterated torture. Marcus replayed every moment of that interview in his head approximately 7,000 times. Every answer he'd given, every question he'd asked, every detail of his interaction with Eleanor both in the alley and in the conference room. Had he said the right things? Had he made a good impression? Or had he somehow blown it by not recognizing who Eleanor was? He told the story to his roommate Tyler, so many times that Tyler started charging him $5 per retelling. "I'm not a therapist, man," Tyler said. "You need to chill out. Either you got the job or you didn't. Obsessing about it won't change anything." But Marcus couldn't help it. This wasn't just any job. This was TechVision. This was his dream opportunity. And it had come wrapped in the strangest circumstances he could imagine. On Monday, he checked his email 17 times. On Tuesday, 23. By Wednesday, he was refreshing his inbox every 15 minutes. Tyler threatened to hide his phone. "They said they'd be in touch within a week," Marcus said for the 100th time, pacing their small living room. "It's been 4 days." "4 business days," Tyler corrected. "Dude, seriously. Go to the gym. Play a video game. Do literally anything other than stare at your email." Marcus tried. He really did. He went to work at Mid-Range Tech and attempted to focus on his projects, but his mind kept wandering. He went to the gym and spent more time on his phone between sets than actually exercising. He tried playing video games, but kept pausing to check his email. On Thursday afternoon, something interesting happened. His current boss, Greg, called him into his office. Greg was a nice guy, a decent manager, but not particularly inspiring. Marcus had always felt like Greg was content with mediocrity, which was part of why Marcus wanted to leave. "Hey Marcus, have a seat," Greg said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "How are things going?" "Good," Marcus said cautiously. Greg didn't usually do random check-ins unless something was up. "That's great. Greg tapped his pen on his desk, clearly working up to something. "So, I wanted to ask you about your plans. Are you happy here? Feeling challenged? Engaged?" Marcus's spider sense started tingling. Had Greg somehow found out about the TechVision interview? "I'm doing fine. Why do you ask?" "Well, your performance has been excellent. Really excellent. And we want to make sure we're not taking you for granted. So I talked to upper management, and we'd like to offer you a promotion. Senior engineer position, 15% raise, more responsibility on the flagship projects." Marcus blinked. This was unexpected. "That's, wow. Thank you. When would this start?" "Immediately, if you want it. I know we haven't always given you the recognition you deserve, but we see you, Marcus. We value you. We want you to build your career here. It was a good offer. Really good. 15% more money. Senior title. Better projects. A week ago, Marcus would have been thrilled. But now? Now he'd seen what TechVision was doing. He'd met Eleanor Hartley. He'd glimpsed a different kind of future. Can I think about it? Marcus asked. Maybe have the weekend to consider? Greg looked surprised, which was fair. Most people would have jumped at the offer. Sure, of course. But Marcus, can I be honest with you? Please. I've been doing this a long time. And when someone asks for time to think about a promotion, it usually means they're considering leaving. Are you interviewing elsewhere? Marcus considered lying, but Greg had always been straight with him. He deserved the same respect. I had an interview last week. At another company. I haven't heard back yet. Greg nodded slowly. I figured. Look, I get it. You're talented, you want to grow, and maybe we haven't been pushing you enough. But this is a good place, Marcus. Stable. Reliable. We take care of our people. Sometimes the grass isn't greener, you know. I know, Marcus said. And I appreciate the offer. Really. Let me think about it over the weekend, okay? Fair enough. Greg stood up and extended his hand. Whatever you decide, you're a valuable member of this team. Marcus shook his hand and left the office feeling more confused than ever. Now he had two potential paths. The safe one, where he stayed at mid-range tech with more money and responsibility. And the unknown one, assuming TechVision even offered him the job. That night, he called his parents. His mother picked up on the second ring. Marcus. How are you, honey? We haven't heard from you in over a week. I know, Mom, sorry. I've been busy. Hey, can I ask you guys something? Is Dad there? He's right here. Let me put you on speaker. His father's voice came through. What's up, son? Everything okay? Marcus told them the whole story. The interview at TechVision, helping Eleanor, finding out she was the COO, the waiting, and now the promotion offer from mid-range tech. When he finished, there was a long pause. Then his mother spoke. That woman you helped. You did the right thing, Marcus. Your father and I raised you to be someone who helps people in need. I know, Mom. But I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about what I should do now. About the job situation. His father cleared his throat. What does your gut tell you? That I want the TechVision job. But I don't know if I'm going to get it. And mid-range tech is offering me something real, something I can actually accept. How long did they give you to decide? His father asked. Greg said to take the weekend. And how long until you hear from TechVision? They said within a week. Tomorrow is the last day of that window. So wait until Friday, his father said simply. See if TechVision calls. If they don't, accept the mid-range promotion. If they do, then you'll have a real decision to make. It was good advice. Practical, measured, rational. Exactly what Marcus should have thought of himself if he wasn't so caught up in his own anxiety. Thanks, Dad. Mom. I'll let you know what happens. We're proud of you, honey, his mother said. No matter what you choose. Friday arrived with all the subtlety of an anxiety attack. Marcus woke up at 6 a.m. even though he'd set his alarm for 7. He checked his email immediately. Nothing from TechVision. He went to work, but his mind was elsewhere. This was it. The last day. If he didn't hear from them by the end of business hours, it was over. They'd either gone with someone else or they were still deciding and would contact him next week. But either way, he'd need to give Greg an answer about the promotion. Morning passed with excruciating slowness. Marcus checked his email after every meeting, every task, every bathroom break. Nothing. Lunch came and went. Still nothing. By 3 p.m., Marcus was starting to lose hope. They weren't going to call. They'd found someone better, someone who hadn't shown up late and disheveled someone. Who hadn't made the COO witness them at their absolute worst before the interview even started. At 4:30, Greg stopped by Marcus's desk. Hey, have you made a decision about the promotion? HR needs to know by 5 if we're going to process the paperwork for Monday. Marcus looked at his email one more time. Still nothing. Yeah, he said, his heart heavy. I'll take it. Thank you. Greg's face broke into a huge smile. That's fantastic. This is great news, Marcus. Really great. Let me go tell HR. Welcome to the senior engineering team. As Greg walked away, Marcus slumped in his chair. He'd made his choice. It was a good choice. A smart choice. So why did it feel like he'd just lost something important? He was packing up his things at 4:55, preparing to head home, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer, assuming it was a spam call, but something made him pick up. Hello. Marcus Chen. A woman's voice, professional and friendly, but not Eleanor's. Yes, this is Marcus. This is Rebecca from TechVision Industries. I'm sorry for the late call. Do you have a moment? Marcus's heart stopped. Then started again, beating triple time. Yes. Yes, of course. Wonderful. I'm calling with good news. The interview panel was very impressed with you. We'd like to offer you the senior software engineer position. The world seemed to tilt. Marcus sat back down at his desk, his legs suddenly unreliable. Really? Rebecca laughed. Really? Eleanor in particular was adamant that you'd be a great fit for our team. She said something about you demonstrating exactly the kind of judgment and character she wants in her employees. Marcus couldn't form words. That's incredible. Thank you. I'm emailing you the official offer letter right now. It includes salary, benefits, start date, all the details. Please take your time reviewing it. We'd like an answer by Wednesday if possible, but if you need a bit more time, we can be flexible. Wednesday is fine. More than fine. Excellent. And Marcus? Welcome to TechVision. We're excited to have you. The call ended. Marcus stared at his phone like it was a magical artifact. Then he checked his email, and there it was. A message from TechVision Industries with the subject line job offer senior software engineer. He opened it with shaking hands. The salary was 30% higher than what he was making now. 20% higher than the promotion Greg had just offered. The benefits were extraordinary. The projects they wanted him to work on were exactly the kind of cutting-edge challenges he dreamed about. And at the bottom of the email, there was a personal note. Marcus, I want you to know that this offer has nothing to do with what happened on Tuesday morning. You earned this position through your skills, your experience, and your performance in the interview. That said, what you did that day confirmed something I look for in every employee at TechVision: the ability to see beyond your own immediate goals and act with integrity when it matters. I think you're going to do great things here. Eleanor. Marcus read the note 3 times. Then he stood up, walked straight to Greg's office, and knocked on the door. Marcus. Hey, I was just about to send your promotion paperwork to. Wait, what's wrong? You look weird. Greg, I'm sorry. I need to turn down the promotion. Greg's face fell. You got another offer. I did. And I know the timing is terrible, but I have to take it. It's the opportunity I've been working toward my whole career. To his credit, Greg didn't get angry. He just looked disappointed. TechVision. Yeah. When do you start? 2 weeks, if they'll let me give you proper notice. Greg nodded slowly. Of course. We'll make it work. I'm sorry to lose you, Marcus, but I understand. Congratulations. Really. They shook hands, and Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He'd made his choice. The real choice. The one his gut had been telling him was right all along. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the lobby of TechVision Industries, wearing a new suit that actually fit properly, his hair professionally styled, a leather messenger bag containing his new laptop on his shoulder. It was his first day. Everything was different this time. He wasn't late. He wasn't sweaty. He wasn't disheveled. He was here as an employee, not a supplicant hoping for a job. And yet, somehow, he felt more nervous than he had on interview day. Rebecca met him in the lobby with a bright smile. Marcus. Welcome. Ready for your first day. As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus said, returning the smile. She took him through the building, explaining the layout. Cafeteria on the 3rd floor, gym in the basement, various team spaces scattered throughout. TechVision encouraged collaboration, so instead of traditional offices, most employees worked in open floor plans with quiet rooms available for focused work or private calls. They rode the elevator to the 14th floor, where the engineering team was based. Rebecca led him through a maze of desks and workstations until they reached a small cluster of cubicles near the windows. "This is your spot," she said, gesturing to a desk with a large monitor and an ergonomic chair. "David will be by shortly to meet with you and get you set up with your first project assignments. In the meantime, there's a new hire orientation packet here, and..." Marcus. They both turned. Sarah Kim was walking toward them, carrying 2 coffee cups. "I thought you might need this on your first day," she said, handing him one. "Fair warning, the coffee here is way too strong. I think they're trying to engineer programmers who never sleep." Marcus laughed and accepted the coffee. "Thank you. That's really thoughtful." "Sarah, could you keep Marcus company for a bit?" Rebecca asked. "I need to run to another new hire orientation on 6. "Absolutely," Sarah said. Once Rebecca had left, she perched on the edge of Marcus's new desk. "So, how are you feeling? First day jitters?" "A little," Marcus admitted. "Though this is definitely less stressful than my interview." "I bet." Sarah grinned. "That was quite an entrance you made. It's basically legend status now. The guy who saved the COO and showed up late to his own interview." Marcus felt his cheeks heat. "People know about that." "Are you kidding?" Eleanor told the story at the last all-hands meeting. "She used you as an example of the kind of people we want working here. People who have their priorities straight." She told everyone? "Well, she didn't use your name since you weren't an employee yet. But now that you are, yeah, people are going to figure it out." Sarah must have seen the mild panic on Marcus's face because she added quickly, "It's a good thing. People respect that. This company values ethics and integrity as much as technical skills. What you did embodied that." Before Marcus could respond, David Wong appeared, clapping his hands together. "Marcus, welcome aboard. Ready to dive in?" What followed was a whirlwind of introductions, system setups, and project overviews. David walked Marcus through the current priorities for their team, explaining the codebase architecture and the various projects in progress. There was so much information that Marcus's head was spinning, but it was the good kind of overwhelmed. The excited kind. "We're going to start you on the renewable energy optimization project," David explained, pulling up a series of diagrams on Marcus's new monitor. "Basically, we're building an AI system that can predict energy demand patterns and optimize the distribution from various renewable sources. Solar, wind, hydroelectric. The goal is to minimize waste and maximize efficiency." "That sounds amazing," Marcus said, and he meant it. This was exactly the kind of work he dreamed of doing. "You'll be working closely with Sarah's team on the AI components. Your job is to build the interface layer between her algorithms and the energy grid systems." David smiled. "Sound good?" "Sounds perfect." The morning flew by in a blur of meetings, code reviews, and setup tasks. Marcus met what felt like 50 people, though he knew he'd only remember about 10 of their names by tomorrow. Everyone was friendly and welcoming, asking him questions about his background, sharing their own stories about joining TechVision. At noon, Sarah appeared at his desk again. "Lunch? A group of us are going to the cafeteria." Marcus grabbed his badge and followed her. The cafeteria was impressive, more like a high-end food court than a typical company lunchroom. There were multiple stations offering different cuisines, a salad bar, a grill, even a sushi counter. And everything was free for employees. "One of the perks," Sarah said, noticing his expression. "Eleanor believes that taking care of employees means actually taking care of them. Good food, good coffee, good working conditions. It makes people want to be here." They got their food and joined a table where several other engineers were already eating. The conversation was light and friendly, ranging from the latest projects to weekend plans to a spirited debate about the best coffee shop in the neighborhood. Marcus was just starting to relax when he saw Eleanor enter the cafeteria. She was with several other executives, all in serious business attire, deep in conversation about something. The cafeteria was big enough that Marcus thought she probably wouldn't notice him, and he wasn't sure if he should approach her anyway. Did the COO want to be bothered during lunch? But Eleanor's eyes swept the room and landed on his table. Her face lit up with recognition, and she excused herself from her group, making her way over. "Marcus," she said warmly as she reached their table. Everyone immediately stopped talking. "How's your first day going?" Marcus stood up quickly, suddenly feeling like he should be more formal. "It's going great. Really great. Everyone's been incredibly welcoming." "Good. That's what I like to hear." She turned to the rest of the table. "You're all taking good care of our newest team member, I trust?" There was a chorus of assurances. Eleanor smiled, then looked back at Marcus. "I won't keep you from your lunch, but I wanted to say welcome officially. If you need anything, my door is always open." "Well, metaphorically. I don't actually have a door. We all work in open spaces. But you know what I mean." "Thank you," Marcus said. "I really appreciate everything. The opportunity, I mean. Not just the job, but everything." Eleanor's expression softened. "You earned it, Marcus. All of it." She glanced at the rest of the table. "Did Sarah tell you that we use your story in our new hire orientations now?" "She mentioned something about that," Marcus said, feeling his face flush again. "It's a good story. It illustrates what we value here. Technical skills can be taught. Integrity can't." She paused, then added with a slight smile, "Though maybe next time, try to help someone after the interview instead of before." The table laughed, and the tension broke. Eleanor gave a small wave and returned to her own group. As soon as she was out of earshot, one of the other engineers let out a low whistle. "Dude," he said to Marcus, "you're like the COO's favorite person. Do you know how rare that is?" "I just did what anyone should do," Marcus protested. "Yeah, but that's the point," Sarah said. "Not everyone does. You did. And now you're here. That's the TechVision way." The rest of the day continued in a similar vein. More meetings, more code reviews, more getting-to-know-you conversations. By 5 o'clock, Marcus's brain was completely full, in the best possible way. He'd learned more in one day than he had in the last 3 months at his old job. He was packing up his things when David stopped by his desk. "How are you feeling?" "Not too overwhelmed." "Overwhelmed," Marcus admitted, "but in a good way. There's so much to learn." "You'll get there. You've got good instincts, Marcus. I could tell that from your interview, and I saw it again today in how you approached the code review this afternoon. You ask good questions. You think about edge cases. You consider the bigger picture." David leaned against the desk. "Eleanor has good judgment about people. If she says you're going to do well here, you're going to do well here." "Thanks," Marcus said. "That means a lot." "Get out of here," David said with a smile. "Go home, rest up. Tomorrow we'll start diving deeper into the renewable energy project." Marcus left the building as the sun was starting to set over Seattle. The city was beautiful in that golden hour light, all glass and water and sky. He pulled out his phone and called Tyler. "So." Tyler answered immediately. "How was it?" "It was perfect," Marcus said, and he realized he meant it. "It was everything I hoped it would be and more." "I'm proud of you, man. You took a chance, it paid off." Marcus thought about that as he walked toward the bus stop. Had he taken a chance? In a way, yes. He'd left a stable job for an unknown opportunity. But also, the real chance he'd taken was in that alley 2 weeks ago, when he'd chosen to help someone instead of prioritizing his own goals. And that choice had led him here, to the job of his dreams, working with brilliant people on projects that mattered. Not because he'd been cunning or strategic or calculating, but because he'd been decent. Because when faced with a choice between helping someone and helping himself, he'd chosen helping someone. Life was funny that way. 3 months into his tenure at TechVision, Marcus was thriving. The renewable energy project was progressing beautifully. He'd found his rhythm with the team, learned the codebase inside and out, and had already contributed several key innovations that improved the system's efficiency by 12%. But more than the technical work, Marcus had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for: a sense of purpose. Every day, he came to work knowing that what he was building mattered. The system he was helping to create would reduce energy waste, lower carbon emissions, and make renewable energy more viable and accessible. It wasn't just code. It was impact. He'd also developed a genuine friendship with Sarah and several other engineers on his team. They'd started a tradition of getting coffee together every Friday morning to discuss both work and life. It was through these conversations that Marcus learned more about TechVision's culture and values. "The thing about working here," Sarah told him one Friday morning as they sat in the cafeteria before the day officially started, "is that Eleanor sets the tone for everything. And she believes that good people do good work. So she hires good people, treats them well, and trusts them to do good work. It's revolutionary, honestly. Most tech companies treat employees like interchangeable parts." "She's pretty amazing," Marcus agreed. He'd seen Eleanor around the building frequently over the past 3 months, and every interaction had reinforced his first impression of her. She remembered people's names, asked about their projects with genuine interest, and led with both competence and compassion. "Have you heard the story of why she started working in tech?" Sarah asked. Marcus shook his head. She was a social worker for 15 years. Worked with at-risk youth in underfunded neighborhoods. She saw how technology could be a bridge to opportunity for these kids, but also how it was often inaccessible to the communities that needed it most. So she went back to school, got a business degree, and decided to change the industry from the inside. She's been at TechVision for 8 years now, COO for the last 3. "That explains a lot," Marcus said. "About why she cares so much about integrity and values." "Exactly. She's seen the worst of what happens when people prioritize profit over people. She's determined to build something different here." That afternoon, Marcus was deep in debugging a particularly tricky piece of code when he got an email notification. It was from Eleanor's assistant, requesting a meeting. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Eleanor's office. Marcus's first thought was panic. Had he done something wrong? Was there a problem with his work? But then he read the subject line, "Quarterly check-in." Right. Eleanor met with all new hires at the 3-month mark. It was part of her commitment to staying connected with the team. Still, Marcus was nervous when he knocked on Eleanor's door frame the next day at precisely 2 p.m. She looked up from her computer and smiled. "Marcus, come in. Sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm good, thank you." Marcus sat in one of the comfortable chairs across from her desk. Eleanor's office was modest for a CO, with large windows overlooking the city, bookshelves filled with both business texts and novels, and several pieces of art that looked like they'd been made by children, probably gifts from her social work days. "So," Eleanor said, turning away from her computer to give Marcus her full attention, "you've been here 3 months. How are you feeling about TechVision? About your work? About the team?" "Honestly? It's been incredible," Marcus said. "The project is challenging in all the right ways. The team is brilliant and supportive. I feel like I'm learning and growing every day. And I love that the work we're doing actually matters. That it's going to make a difference." Eleanor nodded, looking pleased. "David's been giving me regular updates on your progress. He's very impressed. He says you have a gift for seeing the bigger picture while still being meticulous about the details. That's a rare combination." "That's generous of him to say." "It's not generosity. It's observation." Eleanor leaned back in her chair. "Marcus, I want to talk to you about something that happened this week. David probably hasn't mentioned it yet because it's still in early planning stages, but we're expanding the renewable energy project. We want to pilot the system in 3 new cities. And we need someone to lead the implementation team." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. That sounds like a huge opportunity. It is. It would mean coordinating between multiple teams, working directly with city officials and energy companies, overseeing both the technical implementation and the stakeholder management. It's a lot of responsibility. Eleanor looked at him directly. "David recommended you for the role." "Me?" Marcus couldn't hide his surprise. "But I've only been here 3 months. There are people on the team who've been here for years." "Experience isn't just about time served," Eleanor said. "It's about judgment, leadership, and the ability to see what needs to be done and do it. You've demonstrated all of those qualities. Not just in your work, but in how you approach everything." She paused. "Including how you approached meeting me for the first time." Marcus felt his cheeks warm. Even 3 months later, the story of their first meeting was still part of his identity at TechVision. I was just doing what felt right. Exactly. And that's what makes you suited for this role. Because leading a team isn't just about technical expertise. It's about making decisions that balance multiple priorities and stakeholders. It's about doing what's right even when it's hard. You've already shown you can do that. Marcus took a breath, trying to process what she was saying. I'm honored that you and David think I can handle this. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. This is a big step. Of course it's a big step. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried about your judgment. Eleanor smiled. Here's what I've learned in my years leading teams. The people who are most nervous about taking on leadership roles are often the best leaders. Because they understand the weight of the responsibility. They don't take it lightly. When would this start? Ideally, in about a month. That gives you time to transition your current work and to prepare. David will mentor you through the process, and I'll be available as well. You won't be doing this alone. Marcus thought about it. A leadership role. After only 3 months. It was fast, maybe too fast. But it was also exactly the kind of challenge he'd come to TechVision for. The kind of opportunity that could shape his entire career. Can I think about it for a day or two? He asked. Of course. But Marcus. Eleanor leaned forward. I want you to know something. When I make decisions about people, about who to hire or promote or trust with important work, I don't just look at their resume or their technical skills. I look at their character. I look at what they do when no one's watching. When you helped me that day, you didn't know who I was. You didn't know it would lead to anything. You just saw someone who needed help, and you helped them. That told me everything I needed to know about who you are. I appreciate that, Marcus said quietly. More than you know. They talked for a few more minutes about the specifics of the project, but Marcus's mind was already made up. This was his chance. Not just to advance his career, but to lead something meaningful. To take everything he'd learned and use it to make a real difference. The next morning, he went to David's office. I'm in, he said. I want to lead the implementation team. David's face broke into a huge grin. That's fantastic. I knew you'd say yes. Let me walk you through what we're envisioning. A year after joining TechVision, Marcus stood on a stage at a renewable energy conference in Portland, presenting the results of the pilot program he'd led. Behind him, a screen displayed impressive statistics: 23% reduction in energy waste across the 3 pilot cities, 15% decrease in carbon emissions, and seamless integration with existing grid systems. The audience of energy officials, tech leaders, and environmental advocates listened intently as Marcus explained the technical innovations his team had developed, the challenges they'd overcome, and the lessons they'd learned. He spoke with confidence and clarity, no longer the nervous candidate who'd shown up disheveled to an interview. When he finished, the applause was enthusiastic. During the Q&A session that followed, the questions were thoughtful and engaged. Marcus answered each one thoroughly, acknowledging his team's contributions and being honest about where there was still room for improvement. As he stepped off the stage, Eleanor was waiting in the wings, a proud smile on her face. She'd come to the conference to support him, even though she had a dozen other things she could have been doing. That was excellent, she said as they walked back toward the conference hall. You handled those questions brilliantly, especially the skeptical ones. I learned from the best, Marcus said. You and David have been amazing mentors. We just gave you the opportunity. You're the one who did the work. They found seats near the back of the hall for the next presentation. Marcus, I want to talk to you about something. There's a new initiative we're planning. Even bigger than the renewable energy project. And I want you to be part of the leadership team for it. Over the next hour, Eleanor outlined a vision for using AI and sustainable technology to transform entire communities' relationship with energy and resources. It was ambitious, complex, and exactly the kind of world-changing work that Marcus had once only dreamed about. I know it's a lot to take on, Eleanor said as she finished explaining. And you'd be working directly with me and the executive team. It would be a significant step up in terms of responsibility and visibility. Marcus thought about where he'd been a year ago. Stuck in a job that didn't challenge him, wondering if he'd ever get the chance to do work that mattered. He thought about the moment on the sidewalk when he'd heard someone calling for help and had to choose between his own ambitions and doing the right thing. He'd chosen to help. And that choice had led him here, to opportunities beyond anything he could have imagined. "I'm in," Marcus said without hesitation. "Let's do it." Eleanor extended her hand. "Welcome to the executive leadership team."
Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. Drop a comment below telling me about a time when you had to choose between helping someone and pursuing your own goals. What did you choose? Do you have any regrets? Remember, the choices we make when no one's watching shape the lives we get to live. Choose kindness. Choose integrity. Choose to be the kind of person who stops to help. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.